The Hindu Kush doesn't forgive mistakes. At 8,500 feet, where the air sits thin enough to make your lungs scream, and the wind cuts through Kevlar like it's tissue paper, every decision carries weight. Every breath matters. Every second separates the living from the dead. Forward Operating Base Ripley, Kunar Province, Afghanistan, September 2019. The firebase sat wedged into the mountainside like a fist driven into stone. Sandbags, HESCO barriers, concertina wire, all the things that were supposed to keep 200 angry Taliban fighters from overrunning 47 United States Marines. Supposed to. Master Gunnery Sergeant Thane Blackwood pressed his eye against the thermal scope, watching heat signatures bloom across the valley floor. 200 hostiles, maybe more, moving with the kind of coordinated precision that spoke of training, planning, patience. Reaper 6, this is Tower 3, the voice crackled through his headset. Calm, professional, the kind of calm that only comes from someone who's made peace with whatever happens next. I count 200 hostiles, 3 approach vectors, coordinating for simultaneous assault. Estimate contact in 15 minutes. Blackwood knew that voice, had heard it every day for the past 6 weeks, requesting medical supplies, coordinating medevac schedules, checking on wounded Marines. Doc Merrick, the combat medic who'd saved 8 lives in the past month alone. Small woman, maybe 5'3", couldn't weigh more than 120 pounds soaking wet. Quiet, competent, the kind of corpsman Marines would walk through fire for, because they knew she'd walk through fire to pull them out. What Blackwood didn't know, what nobody at FOB Ripley knew, was that Doc Merrick was currently lying prone in Tower 3 with an M110 semi-automatic sniper system, a Schmidt in Bender 5 to 25 times scope, and a skill set that would rewrite Marine Corps history in the next 72 hours. Tower 3, Reaper 6, confirm you have Overwatch capability? Silence. 3 seconds. 5. Then, affirmative Reaper 6, I have Overwatch. Ghost 1 is active. Ghost 1. Blackwood felt something cold slide down his spine. He'd heard that call sign exactly once before, 8 years ago, in a classified after-action report he wasn't supposed to see. Scout Sniper. 17 confirmed kills. Disappeared from the sniper community in 2016 like smoke in wind. Ghost 1, confirm your identity. Another pause, longer this time. Ghost 1 is Corporal Alara Merrick, Scout Sniper qualified 2013. If you have a problem with that, Gunny, we can discuss it after I save your life. The first shot rang out exactly 4 seconds later. 800 meters downrange, a Taliban fighter carrying an 82mm mortar tube dropped like someone had cut his strings. The sound of the shot, that distinctive crack boom of supersonic death, echoed off the mountains a full second after the man hit the ground. Blackwood watched through thermals as 4 more heat signatures around the mortar position jerked, scattered, fell. 5 shots, 5 kills, 7.2 seconds. Ghost 1, he said quietly, welcome to the fight. 72 hours earlier, the helicopter had brought Thane Blackwood into FOB Ripley on a Tuesday morning when the temperature was already pushing 107 degrees. CH-53 Super Stallion, rotors beating the thin mountain air into submission, dust cloud rising like biblical wrath. Blackwood stepped off the ramp carrying 40 pounds of gear and 34 years of Marine Corps service on his shoulders. Master Gunnery Sergeant, E9, the kind of rank you don't get by being stupid or lucky. You get it by being right more often than you're wrong, and by keeping Marines alive when the universe has other ideas. He was 54 years old, 6'1", 215 pounds, most of it scar tissue and bad memories. His face looked like it had been carved from desert sandstone, all hard angles and sun damage, and the kind of permanent squint you develop after 3 decades of staring at things that want to kill you. Master Guns! The FOB commander, Captain Hayes, jogged across the landing zone. Young, maybe 32, good officer from what Blackwood had read in the briefing file, led from the front. Marines respected him. "Welcome to Ripley. Hell of a time to visit." "Captain." Blackwood shook his hand. Firm grip. Eye contact. "Good. Intelligence sent me to investigate the leak. 6 weeks of Taliban knowing our patrol routes, supply schedules, defensive positions. Someone's talking. I'm here to find out who." Hayes's jaw tightened. "It's cost us 11 wounded, 2 KIA. If you find the bastard, I want first crack at him." "You'll get in line behind me, sir." They walked toward the command post, boots crunching on gravel that had been baked into something approaching concrete. The FOB was small, maybe 300 meters across at its widest point. Plywood buildings, sandbag revetments, guard towers overlooking the valley below. Home to 47 Marines who were a very long way from home. "I've got your billet set up in the CP," Hayes said. "You'll have access to all personnel files, communications logs, everything." "Where do you want to start?" Blackwood was about to answer when the sound stopped him. Not a sound exactly, more like the absence of sound. That particular quality of silence that happens when someone who knows what they're doing is trying very hard not to make noise. He turned. 20 meters away, outside the aid station, a figure knelt beside a wounded Marine. Small, compact, moving with the kind of practiced efficiency that comes from doing the same task 1,000 times. Hands wrapped in pressure bandages, checking vitals, murmuring something too quiet to hear. "That's Doc Merrick," Hayes said. "Best corpsman I've ever served with. That's Martinez she's working on. Took shrapnel in the leg during last night's probe. Would have bled out if Doc hadn't been there in 40 seconds flat." Blackwood watched as the corpsman, Merrick, finished the bandage, helped Martinez to his feet, handed him off to another Marine. Then she stood, and Blackwood got his first real look at her. 5'3", maybe 118, and that was being generous. Dark hair pulled back in a tight braid, face that could have belonged to a college student if not for the eyes. Those were old eyes, combat eyes, the kind of eyes that have seen things they can't unsee and made peace with it anyway. She caught him staring, held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Professional assessment, nothing more. Then she nodded, the kind of nod one Marine gives another, and turned back to the aid station. "How long has she been here?" Blackwood asked. 6 weeks, same time the leak started. Hayes paused. "But if you're thinking Doc Merrick is dirty, Master Guns, you're barking up the wrong tree. She's saved more Marines in 6 weeks than most corpsmen save in a whole deployment. 0 political discussions, 0 unauthorized communications, 0 anything that doesn't involve keeping my people alive." Blackwood filed that away. Everyone was a suspect until they weren't. Even small women with old eyes who save lives for a living. "I'll need to interview her," he said, "along with everyone else." "Roger that. I'll have her report to the CP at 1400. But Blackwood was still watching the aid station, watching the small figure move between wounded Marines with the kind of calm competence that either came naturally or was beaten into you by experience. Something about her tugged at his memory. Something familiar in the way she moved, the way she held herself, like he'd seen it before. He pushed the thought away. 34 years of service meant 34 years of faces, names, firefights blurring together into one long, continuous memory. Couldn't trust every random sense of déjà vu. Still, something. The CP was plywood and sandbags, and the perpetual smell of diesel fuel and instant coffee. Blackwood set up his workstation, laptop, secure communications, personnel files for all 47 Marines currently assigned to FOB Ripley. He started with the obvious suspects: communications specialists with access to encryption keys, logistics personnel who knew supply schedules, junior officers with access to patrol routes. By 1330 hours, he'd eliminated 12 possibilities and added 3 new ones to the list. By 1350, he was staring at a file that made his blood run cold. Merrick, Elara K. Rank, Corporal, E4. MOS, 8402, Fleet Marine Force Reconnaissance Corpsman. Time in service, 8 years. Current assignment, FOB Ripley, Combat Medic. Previous assignments, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, 2016 to 2019. Qualifications, Combat Lifesaver, Tactical Combat Casualty Care Instructor, Wilderness EMT. Standard file, nothing unusual. Until Blackwood clicked on the secondary MOS listing. Additional qualifications, MOS 0317, Scout Sniper, 2013 to 2016. Scout Sniper School graduate, Camp Pendleton, 2013. Confirmed kills, 17. Afghanistan/Iraq, 2013 to 2016. Marksmanship Instructor Qualification. Expert status, inactive. Voluntary transfer to medical, 2016. Blackwood read it 3 times. Scout Sniper, 17 confirmed kills. He opened the detailed service record, and there, buried 6 pages deep, he found it. Father, Gunnery Sergeant Silas Merrick, USMC, deceased. Scout Sniper, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, KIA, Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 2011. Notable achievement, 2,147-yard confirmed kill, 3rd longest in U.S. MC history. Silas Merrick. The name hit Blackwood like a rifle round to the chest. Helmand Province, 2010. Blackwood's force reconnaissance team had been pinned down by a Taliban heavy weapons position dug into a ridgeline. 50 hostiles, 6 Marines, no air support, no quick reaction force, no way out. Then a voice on the radio, calm, professional, West Virginia accent so thick you could spread it on toast. Recon 2, this is Longshot 6. I have eyes on your position. Stand by for fire support. 3 shots, 3 seconds. 3 Taliban machine gunners dead at 1,200 meters. The rest had scattered like smoke. Silas Merrick had saved Blackwood's entire team that day. They'd never met face to face. Merrick had been operating from a hide position 3 clicks away, but Blackwood had sent a bottle of Tennessee whiskey to Merrick's unit with a note that just said, "You bought 6 Marines another day. We won't forget." Silas Merrick had died 9 months later. IED, instant, didn't suffer. And now his daughter was at FOB Ripley, working as a combat medic, hiding a Scout Sniper qualification that put her in the top 1% of 1% of Marine marksmen. The question was, why was she hiding it? Blackwood checked his watch. 13:58 hours. 2 minutes later, there was a knock on the plywood door. Enter. Corporal Elara Merrick stepped into the CP. She wore standard Marine Corps utilities, boots that had seen better days, and a medical bag slung over one shoulder. No body armor, corpsmen rarely wore it inside the wire, prioritizing mobility over protection. Up close, Blackwood could see the details the distance had hidden. She had her father's eyes, pale gray, like winter sky over the Appalachians. Same sharp cheekbones, same way of holding herself absolutely still, conserving energy, ready to move in any direction with zero warning. Master Gunnery Sergeant. She came to attention. Perfect posture. Corporal Merrick reporting as ordered. At ease, Corporal. Take a seat. She sat, hands folded in her lap, face neutral, waiting. Blackwood let the silence stretch. Interview technique 101. Comfortable silences make uncomfortable people talk. Most people, anyway. Elara Merrick just waited, patient as stone. How long have you been at Ripley? Blackwood finally asked. 6 weeks, Master Guns, since the 3rd of August. How do you like it? It's a FOB in Afghanistan, Master Guns. It's exactly what it says on the tin. The corner of Blackwood's mouth twitched. Dry humor. He liked that. You've saved a lot of lives in 6 weeks. That's my job. 17 Marines and sailors owe you their lives. Captain Hayes says you're the best corpsman he's ever worked with. Captain Hayes is kind. Captain Hayes is honest. Blackwood leaned back in his chair. Which is why I'm wondering why the best corpsman at FOB Ripley is also hiding the fact that she's a scout sniper with 17 confirmed kills. The silence that followed could have cut diamonds. Ilara's face didn't change, didn't twitch, didn't show surprise or fear or anger or anything at all. But her eyes, those pale, gray winter eyes, went absolutely flat. I'm not hiding anything, Master Guns. My service record is complete and accurate. If you read it, you know I transferred to medical in 2016. I haven't served as a scout sniper in 3 years. Why the transfer? Personal reasons. That's not an answer. With respect, Master Guns, it's the only answer you're getting. Blackwood studied her. Most Marines, hell, most people, would have buckled under the scrutiny. But Ilara Merrick sat there like she'd been carved from the same mountain stone as the FOB itself. Your father, Blackwood said quietly, was Gunnery Sergeant Silas Merrick. Something flickered in those gray eyes, fast, gone before Blackwood could name it. Yes, Helmand Province, 2010. Your father saved my team. 1,200 meters, 3 shots, 3 kills. We walked out alive because of him. Ilara's hands tightened almost imperceptibly in her lap. I didn't know that, Master Guns. He died 9 months later. I know. You were 18. I know that too. Blackwood leaned forward. I owe your father my life, Corporal, which means I owe you honesty. So here it is. FOB Ripley has a leak. Someone's been feeding Taliban our patrol routes, supply schedules, defensive positions. 11 wounded Marines, 2 dead. And I'm going to find whoever's responsible. Good, Ilara said simply. Everyone's a suspect until they're not. Understood, including you. I'd be disappointed if I wasn't, Master Guns. That would suggest sloppy investigation protocol. Blackwood almost smiled. Almost. You can go, Corporal, but I'll have more questions. Roger that. She stood, came to attention, then hesitated. Master Guns, my father's save. The one in Helmand, did he say anything on the radio? Blackwood remembered that West Virginia drawl, the calm in the face of chaos. He said, Recon 2, consider this a gift from the mountains. Use it wisely. Then he went off comms, professional to the end. Ilara nodded slowly. That sounds like him. Thank you, Master Guns. She turned to leave. Corporal, she stopped. Why'd you quit sniping? The question hung in the air like smoke. Ilara didn't turn around. Because I got tired of being good at killing, Master Guns. I wanted to be good at something else. Then she was gone. Blackwood sat alone in the plywood office, listening to the distant sound of wind howling through the mountains, and wondered if Silas Merrick's daughter knew that in 72 hours she was going to need every single skill her father had taught her. Because the Taliban were coming, and FOB Ripley was about to become the wrong place to be good at saving lives. It was about to become the perfect place to be good at taking them. The sun died behind the mountains at 1847 hours, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and blood red. Beautiful, in the way that dangerous things are often beautiful. Ilara Merrick stood on the perimeter of FOB Ripley, watching darkness swallow the valley below. Her medical bag sat at her feet. Her M4 carbine, standard issue for corpsmen, hung across her chest. She'd cleaned it that morning. Cleaned it every morning. Muscle memory from a life she'd walked away from 3 years ago. Except you never really walk away, do you? The mountains remembered. The wind remembered. And somewhere deep in her bones, in the place where training becomes instinct, and instinct becomes identity, Ilara remembered too. She pulled her father's dog tags from beneath her uniform blouse. Worn metal, stamped letters barely legible after 8 years of carrying them everywhere. Merrick, Silas J. 337-689-042, USM COPOS Baptist. The last time she'd seen him alive, she'd been 18 years old, 2 months before she was scheduled to ship out to boot camp. He'd taken her shooting one final time, their ritual, their language, the way they communicated when words failed. They'd driven to the range outside Charleston, West Virginia. Mountains like sleeping giants. Air so clean it hurt. "You're going to be a fine Marine, Little Reaper," Silas had said. He'd called her that since she was 12, Little Reaper, because she could shoot the wings off a fly at 300 meters and never blink. "I want to be like you, Dad." No. He'd looked at her then, those pale gray eyes serious. "You be better than me. I taught you to shoot because the world's a dangerous place and you need to protect yourself. But don't let that be all you are. You hear me? Don't let the rifle define you." "I won't." He'd smiled. Rare thing, her father's smile. "Liar, you're too good at it not to. Just remember there's more to being a Marine than being good at killing. Remember the people you're protecting. Remember why you're doing it." 3 months later, he'd stepped on an IED in Helmand Province. They'd shipped his body home in a flag-draped box. Elara delayed her enlistment by 2 months. Funeral with full military honors, 21-gun salute. Taps played on a bugle that sounded like it was crying. Her mother had held her hand through the entire service. Neither of them cried. Not then. That came later, alone, in the dark. 2 months after burying her father, Elara shipped out to Paris Island with his dog tags around her neck and a promise in her heart. She would be worthy of his legacy. Then Scout Sniper School, then Afghanistan, Iraq. 17 confirmed kills across 3 years. 17 human beings who'd woken up that morning not knowing it was their last day on Earth. She remembered every single one. The distance, the wind, the calculation, the trigger pull, the way they dropped. The 17th had been different. Mosul, Iraq, 2016. Verified hostile, ISIS fighter, confirmed by 3 separate intelligence sources. Target building was clear of civilians, except it wasn't. The shot had been perfect, 820 meters, headshot, target neutralized. Then a child had stepped into the window. 8 years old, maybe 9. Couldn't have been more than 4 inches from where the bullet had passed. 4 inches, the width of a human hand. The distance between perfect execution and the worst mistake of Elara's life. The child had lived, hadn't even known how close death had come. But Elara had known, had spent that entire night vomiting into a burn barrel, hands shaking so hard she couldn't hold water. The next morning she'd requested transfer to medical. 3 years, 3 years of saving lives instead of taking them. 3 years of telling herself she'd made the right choice, that her father would be proud, that being good at healing was better than being good at killing. And she'd almost believed it until tonight. Elara looked down at the valley, at the shadows gathering like predators in the dark, and felt something cold and familiar settle into her bones. The mountains didn't care about her crisis of conscience. The Taliban didn't care that she'd walked away from sniping. And the 47 Marines at FOB Ripley, good men and women who trusted her to keep them alive, they wouldn't care either when 200 hostiles came over those ridgelines with murder in their hearts. She thought about Master Gunnery Sergeant Blackwood's investigation, about the leak that had cost 11 wounded and 2 dead, about the fact that someone, somewhere, was feeding information to people who wanted every Marine at this FOB dead. She thought about what her father would do, and she knew. Elara Merrick walked back to her quarters, a plywood box barely big enough for a cot and a footlocker. She opened the footlocker. Under 3 years of accumulated gear and personal effects, she found what she was looking for. A black rifle case, foam-lined, untouched since she'd packed it away in 2016. She opened it. The M110 semi-automatic sniper system lay inside like a sleeping predator. Matte black, cold, perfect. Schmidt and Bender 5 to 25 times, scope still mounted. She'd cleaned it before storing it, old habits. So the action was still smooth, the barrel still pristine. Next to it, range cards from a dozen different combat zones, a kestrel weather meter, a ballistic calculator that had saved her life more times than she could count, and a small leather journal filled with her father's handwriting. Sniper's log. Everything Silas Merrick had learned in 20 years of being the best damn scout sniper the Marine Corps had ever produced. Wind reading techniques, ballistic calculations, mental discipline, the 1,000 tiny details that separated good shooters from legends. He'd given it to her on her 16th birthday. "You're better than I was at your age," he'd said. "Hell, you might be better than I am now. This journal's got everything I know. Study it, learn it, then teach it to someone else. Knowledge dies when the last person who knows it dies. Don't let that happen." Ilara picked up the journal, flipped to a random page. Extreme range shooting isn't about the rifle. It's about reading the environment. Wind doesn't blow steady. It flows like water, fast and slow, high and low. You can't trust instruments. You have to see it. Watch grass at 400 meters, 800 meters, 1,200 meters. Watch how mirage bends. Watch how dust moves. The information's all there. You just have to learn the language. She closed the journal, looked at the rifle, made a decision that would change everything. The Ghost Awakens. The armory at FOB Ripley smelled like gun oil and mountain cold. Staff Sergeant Kowalski, armorer, 22 years in, face like a topographic map of bad decisions, looked up from the M249 he was cleaning when Ilara walked in at 21:30 hours. "Doc," he nodded, professional courtesy. Everyone at Ripley respected the corpsman who'd saved Martinez, Patterson, Rodriguez, and 8 others in 6 weeks. "What can I do for you?" Ilara set her rifle case on the counter. "I need to check out additional equipment, Staff Sergeant. M110 SAS platform, match-grade ammunition, spotting scope, and range-finding equipment." Kowalski's hands stopped moving. He looked at the case, looked at her, looked at the case again. "Doc, you're a corpsman. What do you need with sniper equipment?" "I'm also MOS 0317, Staff Sergeant, Scout Sniper Qualified. Check my service record." Kowalski pulled up her file on the armory computer. His eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. "Jesus Christ, 17 confirmed kills. Why the hell are you working as a corpsman?" "Because I wanted to save lives instead of taking them." Ilara met his eyes. "But sometimes you have to be willing to take lives to save them. Tonight's one of those times." Kowalski studied her for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the weapons locker, and pulled out an M110. The rifle was pristine, match-grade barrel, precision trigger group, free-floating handguard. Government property, but treated like a religious artifact by whoever maintained it. "This is my baby," Kowalski said quietly. "Built her myself. Match-grade everything. She'll shoot half MOA groups at 1,000 meters if you do your part." He handed it over. "You scratch her, Doc, and I'll put you on medical hold for the next decade." Ilara accepted the rifle. Checked the chamber. Checked the action. Smooth as silk. "She's beautiful, Staff Sergeant." "Damn right she is. Ammunition's in the back. Take what you need. And Doc?" Kowalski's voice dropped. "Whatever you're planning, be careful. We need you alive. Too many Marines here depend on you." "I'll be careful." She loaded 5 magazines with federal gold medal match 175 grain ammunition. Each round hand-inspected. Each one capable of ending a life at distances that defied common sense. Then she signed out the equipment, spotting scope, laser rangefinder, kestrel weather meter, and walked out into the night. The air had dropped to 68 degrees, cold for Afghanistan in September. But at 8,500 feet, temperature did strange things. Thin air, less oxygen, Ballistics changed. Bullets flew faster, flatter, but also less stable. Every shot required calculation that accounted for altitude, temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, and wind. Always wind. Ilara walked the perimeter, heading toward Tower 3 on the northeastern edge of the FOB. The tower was 30 feet high, reinforced sandbags, plywood platform, 360-degree view of the valley below. Usually manned by a 2 Marine fire team with an M240 machine gun. Tonight, the tower was empty. Captain Hayes had ordered it abandoned 2 days ago after Taliban snipers had started taking shots at it. Too exposed, too dangerous. Better to use the lower positions with better cover, which made it perfect for what Ilara needed. She climbed the ladder, boots on wooden rungs, rifle slung across her back, medical bag left below. She wouldn't need it up here. Up here she was something else, something she'd tried very hard not to be for 3 years. The platform was 8 feet square, sandbags stacked 4 high on 3 sides. Open to the south, perfect firing position with clear views down the valley and across the ridgelines where Taliban would stage their assault. Ilara set up methodically, rifle on bipod, spotting scope to her left, rangefinder to her right, Kestrel weather meter clipped to her shoulder pocket, 5 magazines arranged in perfect sequence. Then she pulled out her father's journal. The pages fell open to a section she'd read 100 times. 1,000 times. When you're preparing for a long-range shot, your brain wants to think about the target. Don't. Think about the environment. Temperature affects air density. Every 10 degrees Fahrenheit changes your trajectory by roughly 0.3 MOA. Altitude matters. Thin air means less drag, which means flatter trajectory, but also less stability. Wind is never constant. It flows. Rivers of air moving at different speeds and different altitudes. Read the grass. Read the mirage. Read the dust. The environment will tell you everything you need to know if you learn to listen. Ilara closed the journal, set it beside her. Then she picked up the Kestrel and started gathering data. Temperature, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, down from 107 this afternoon. That was a 39-degree swing. Significant. At extreme range, that meant roughly 1.2 MOA of elevation change. Bullets would fly faster in thinner, cooler air. She'd need to adjust down. Altitude, 8,500 feet. Air density, approximately 75% of sea level. Her zero had been calculated at sea level, Camp Pendleton, 3 years ago. At this altitude, she'd gain roughly 0.8 MOA of additional elevation. Bullets would fly flatter, but be more susceptible to wind drift. Barometric pressure, 25.84 inches of mercury. Low pressure, storm system moving in from the north. That meant unstable air, unpredictable wind, possible precipitation. Perfect conditions for an assault. Terrible conditions for precision shooting. Humidity, 35%. Dry, that was good. Humidity actually slowed bullets down. Water vapor is denser than dry air. Low humidity meant faster bullets. Adjust down another 0.2 MOA. Wind. Ilara watched the valley below. Even in darkness, she could see movement. Grass bending, dust swirling, the way shadows shifted. Wind wasn't uniform. It never was. Down low, maybe 10 miles per hour from the north. At mid-range, gusting to 15. Up high, where her bullets would travel, probably 18 to 20 with gusts to 25. And wind direction changed with altitude. Ground level wind from the north, but higher up deflected by the mountain ridge to the east, probably shifting to northwest. Maybe 2 o'clock relative to her position. She'd have to read each shot individually, adjust for each engagement based on what the environment told her in that specific moment. This was what separated good snipers from legends. The ability to process a dozen variables in 3 seconds and make a calculation that would send a 175-grain bullet exactly where it needed to go. Her father had been able to do it in 2 seconds. Ilara had done it in 1.8. She pulled out a range card and started plotting. Taliban would approach from three directions: northwest ridge, northeast valley, and straight east up the main road. Each approach had different ranges, different wind conditions, different angles. Northwest ridge, 800 to 1,200 meters. Uphill shot, angle approximately 15 degrees. Adjust for gravity, uphill shots hit high. Subtract 0.7 MOA per 10 degrees of angle. Northeast valley, 1,000 to 1,500 meters. Slight downhill, angle approximately 8 degrees, less adjustment needed. East approach, 600 to 1,000 meters. Level shot, but most exposed. Taliban wouldn't mass there, too obvious. She marked priority targets on the range card: mortar teams, machine gun positions, command elements, the high-value targets that, if eliminated, would disrupt the entire assault. Then she waited. Master Gunnery Sergeant Blackwood found her 3 hours later. He climbed the tower ladder without announcement, boots making just enough noise to avoid getting shot. Smart, polite, the kind of thing a senior NCO did when approaching a sniper position in the dark. Corporal Merrick. Ilara didn't look away from her spotting scope. Master Guns. Mind if I join you? It's a free tower. Blackwood pulled himself onto the platform, looked at the rifle, the spotting scope, the range cards covered in calculations, the journal with Silas Merrick's handwriting visible in the moonlight. So, he said quietly, you decided to stop hiding. I decided to do my job. Your job is corpsman. My job is keeping Marines alive. Ilara finally looked at him. Down there, I keep them alive with tourniquets and chest seals. Up here, I keep them alive by making sure Taliban don't get close enough to need tourniquets and chest seals. Same mission, different tools. Blackwood sat down, back against the sandbags. His knees popped. 54 years old, and every one of them felt like it at 8,500 feet. Your father saved my life, he said. Helmand, 2010. I told you that already, but what I didn't tell you was this. I was 20 years in at that point. I'd seen a lot of good shooters, but your father, he shook his head. Your father was different. It wasn't just skill. It was like he could see things the rest of us couldn't, like the wind told him secrets. He used to say that. Ilara's voice was soft. He'd say wind was a language. Most people heard noise. He heard conversation. Did he teach you that language? From the time I was 12 years old, she paused. I killed my first deer at 14, 800 meters, crosswind at 18 miles per hour. Dad made me calculate everything myself. Took me 6 minutes. By the time I was 16, I could do it in under 10 seconds. How fast can you do it now? Ilara smiled. Small, sad. Fast enough. They sat in silence. Down in the FOB, Marines moved through their evening routines, guard changes, weapons maintenance, the 1,000 small tasks that kept a firebase operational. Most of them had no idea what was coming, but Blackwood knew, and Ilara knew. The intel leak, Blackwood said. I found the source. Ilara's hand stopped moving on the rifle. Who? Lance Corporal Stevens, communications. He's been in encrypted contact with someone outside the FOB, routing it through civilian channels. Thought he was being clever. He wasn't. Blackwood's voice went flat. He's been selling information, patrol routes, supply schedules, defensive positions, all of it, for money. Why? Gambling debts, $50,000 deep to some bookie in San Diego. Taliban offered him a way out. Blackwood looked at his hands. Big hands, scarred hands, hands that had broken men who deserved breaking. 11 Marines wounded, 2 dead, because one stupid kid couldn't stop betting on football games. Where is he now? Confined to quarters. MPs are flying in tomorrow to take him back to face court-martial. He won't make it to tomorrow. The words hung in the cold mountain air. Blackwood turned to look at her. What do you mean? He sold our defensive positions. Taliban know exactly where we're weak. They know we pulled fire teams from the northeastern towers. They know our ammunition stores are low. They know our quick reaction force is 3 hours away. Elara adjusted her scope. Master guns, they're not going to wait for us to fix our defenses. They're coming tonight, maybe tomorrow night, but soon. How do you know? Because that's what I would do. If I had perfect intelligence on an isolated firebase with limited defensive capability, I'd hit it before they could reinforce. She looked at him. Wouldn't you? Blackwood felt ice in his stomach, because she was right. Tactically, strategically, every metric said, hit them now. I need to brief Captain Hayes. You do that. Elara turned back to her scope. I'll be here. Blackwood started for the ladder, stopped. Corporal, that shot in 2016, the one that made you quit sniping, the child in the window. Ilara's hands tightened on the rifle. How'd you know about that? It's in your file, buried deep, but it's there. Mission in Mosul, perfect shot, target eliminated, civilian child missed by 4 inches. You requested transfer to medical the next day. Silence. You made the right choice, Blackwood said quietly. The shot was good. The intelligence was bad. That's not on you. 4 inches, Master Guns. The width of a human hand. That's the margin between me doing my job and me living with killing a child. You didn't kill the child. I got lucky. She finally looked at him. I don't want to be lucky. I want to be certain. And in combat, you can never be certain. So I quit. And now? Now I'm choosing to be here, choosing to do this. Not because I want to, because those 47 Marines down there need me to. She touched her father's dog tags. Dad used to say, the rifle doesn't care why you shoot. It only cares that you do your job when it matters. Tonight matters. Blackwood nodded slowly. Your father would be proud. I hope so. He climbed down the ladder, boots ringing on wood, and left Elara alone with her rifle and her ghosts. The temperature dropped to 62 degrees. Wind picked up to 20 miles per hour with gusts to 28. Elara recalculated her adjustments, wrote new numbers on her range card. At 0032 hours, her radio crackled. All stations, this is Ripley 6. Captain Hayes, calm, professional. We have confirmed enemy movement. Estimate 200 hostiles, 3 approach vectors, coordinating for assault. All personnel to defensive positions. Rules of engagement are weapons free. I say again, weapons free. Elara keyed her radio. Ripley 6, this is Ghost 1. I have overwatch from Tower 3. Request permission to engage targets of opportunity. Long pause. She could almost hear Hayes and Blackwood looking at each other in the CP. Ghost 1, Ripley 6. Confirm your call sign and position. Ghost 1 is Corporal Elara Merrick, MOS 0317, Scout Sniper, Tower 3. I have eyes on primary approach vectors and am prepared to provide precision fire support. Another pause, longer, then Blackwood's voice. Ghost 1, Reaper 6, permission granted. You are authorized to engage. Call your shots. We'll coordinate fire support around your position. Roger, Reaper 6. Ghost 1 standing by. Elara settled deeper into her shooting position. Cheek weld on the stock, eye to scope, breathing slow and steady. Below, in the valley, she could see them now. Heat signatures, movement, the subtle displacement of shadows that meant men with weapons moving with purpose. 200 Taliban fighters, 47 Marines. The math was simple and brutal, unless someone changed the equation. Elara watched through her scope as the enemy advanced. They were good, professional, moving in coordinated groups with covering fire, using terrain, avoiding obvious approach routes. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd assumed Tower 3 was abandoned. At 0042 hours, a Taliban mortar team crested the northwest ridge. 800 meters, 4 men, one carrying the tube, one carrying the base plate, two carrying ammunition. Ilara ranged them with her laser. 823 meters. Wind 18 miles per hour from 2 o'clock. Temperature 62 degrees. Altitude 8,500 feet. She ran the calculation in her head. Bullet drop at 823 meters, 18.7 feet. Wind drift 8.2 inches right. Temperature adjustment minus 0.4 MOA. Altitude adjustment plus 0.8 MOA. Coriolis effect, negligible at this range. Spin drift, 0.3 MOA right. Total holdover, 18.7 feet up, 9.1 inches right. Time of flight, 1.8 seconds. She adjusted her scope. Crosshairs settled on a point in space above and to the right of the lead man's head. The point where he would be in 8 seconds if he maintained his current pace in direction. Her breathing slowed, 62 beats per minute, then 58. Her father's voice in her head. Heartbeat is the enemy. Slow it down. Find the space between beats. That's where the perfect shot lives. She found the space. Squeezed the trigger. The M110 barked. Recoil drove into her shoulder. Muzzle flash lit the tower for a fraction of a second. 1.8 seconds later, 823 meters downrange, the Taliban fighter's head snapped back. He dropped like someone had erased his spine. The other three scattered. Ilara cycled the bolt. Smooth, mechanical, muscle memory from 10,000 hours of practice. Second target, running. 840 meters now. Wind shifted, 20 miles per hour. Adjust right another inch. She fired. The second man fell. Third target, prone now. Smart. 857 meters. Not moving. Harder shot. But Ilara could see him breathing. Could see the small movements that gave away his position. She fired. The third man stopped moving. Fourth target, running back toward the ridge. 890 meters and increasing. Wind gusting to 25 miles per hour now. This was a difficult shot. Moving target, increasing range, variable wind. Ilara led him by 4 feet, adjusted for wind gust, held high, fired. The fourth man tumbled down the ridge like a ragdoll. 4 shots, 4 kills, 11 seconds. Ilara's radio crackled. Blackwood's voice, shocked. Ghost 1, confirm 4 targets eliminated. Affirmative, Reaper 6. Mortar team neutralized, continuing overwatch. She scanned the valley through her scope, looking for the next threat, the next target, the next equation that needed solving with physics and precision, and the skills her father had spent 6 years teaching her. The Taliban were learning. She could see them reacting, taking cover, moving differently. They knew there was a sniper now. Knew they were being hunted. Good. Let them be afraid. At 0048 hours, a machine gun team set up on the Northeast Valley floor. 1,150 meters, PKM medium machine gun, 3-man crew, extremely dangerous. That gun could shred the FOB's defenses. Ilara ranged them. 1,163 meters, wind 22 miles per hour. Temperature 61 degrees. Longer range, more bullet drop, more wind drift, more time of flight. She calculated. Bullet drop 38.4 feet. Wind drift 14.2 inches. Temperature minus 0.6 MOA. Altitude plus 0.9 MOA. Coriolis 0.8 MOA right. Spin drift 0.6 MOA right. Total holdover, 38.4 feet up, 16.1 inches right. Time of flight, 2.4 seconds. She fired 3 times. Smooth, controlled. Each shot a sentence in the language of violence. All 3 machine gunners fell. Ghost 1, Reaper 6, confirm machine gun team neutralized. Affirmative, Continuing, the battle had begun. And in Tower 3, a small woman with her father's eyes and her father's skills was rewriting the terms of engagement, one precisely calculated shot at a time. Over the next hour, Elara fired 27 shots, 27 Taliban fighters dead or wounded at ranges from 650 to 1,450 meters. Her shoulder ached from recoil. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. This was what her father had trained her for. This was what she'd run from for 3 years. This was what she'd finally accepted she needed to be. Not because she wanted to be a killer, but because 47 Marines were counting on her to keep them alive. And the only way to keep them alive was to make sure the people trying to kill them never got close enough to pull a trigger. Ghost 1, Reaper 6. Blackwood's voice was tight. Multiple contacts, east approach. Heavy weapons, we need fire support. Elara swung her rifle to cover the eastern approach. Through her scope, she could see them. 15 Taliban fighters with RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, each one capable of punching through sandbags and plywood like tissue paper. Range, 1,847 meters. Wind, 24 miles per hour, gusting to 30. Temperature, 59 degrees. This was extreme range. This was the kind of shot that required absolute precision. The kind of shot where a single calculation error meant missing by 3 feet instead of 3 inches. Elara took a breath, ran the numbers, and started firing. The impossible shot. The 15th RPG fighter dropped at 1,847 meters. Headshot. Perfect. The rocket launcher clattered from dead hands and rolled down the slope, useless metal tumbling through darkness. Elara cycled the bolt, chambered another round. Her 36th shot of the night. 1 magazine remaining. She'd need to make every round count. The Taliban assault was faltering, not breaking. These were professional fighters, hardened by decades of war, but definitely reconsidering their math. 200 attackers had become maybe 140. Machine gun teams eliminated. Mortar positions destroyed. RPG crews dead before they could fire. All because of one woman in an abandoned tower with a rifle and a lifetime of training that she tried very hard to forget. Through her spotting scope, Elara watched the enemy fighters pull back to covered positions, regrouping, reassessing. They'd figured out there was a sniper. Now they were trying to figure out where. Tower 3 was the obvious answer, but it had been abandoned for 2 days. Taliban intelligence, bought and paid for with Lance Corporal Stevens's betrayal, said that position was empty, so they were looking elsewhere, scanning the lower positions, the reinforced bunkers, anywhere except the 30-foot tower that should have been unmanned. That confusion bought the FOB precious minutes, but confusion never lasted forever. At 0127 hours, Elara's radio crackled. Ghost 1, Ripley 6, Captain Hayes. His voice was steady but tight. Command voice. The voice officers used when things were bad, but they needed everyone to believe they weren't. Status report. Ripley 6, Ghost 1, 36 rounds fired. Estimate 34 to 36 confirmed kills. Enemy assault is disrupted but not broken. They're regrouping at 1,200 to 1,500 meters. Recommend. The crack of a bullet passing overhead cut her off mid-sentence. Not close, maybe 4 feet high, but the sound was distinctive. High-velocity rifle round, 7.62 NATO or similar, supersonic. Someone was shooting at her. Ghost 1, Ripley 6, report. Elara pressed herself against the sandbags, scanned the ridgelines with her spotting scope, looking for muzzle flash, movement, anything that would give away a shooter's position. Ripley 6, Ghost 1, taking fire from unknown position, continuing overwatch. Another shot, this one closer, maybe 2 feet to her left. The Taliban sniper was adjusting, getting her range. Professional work. Careful, patient. Ilara felt her heartbeat accelerate. 90 beats per minute. Too fast. She forced her breathing to slow. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Counting seconds. Her father's voice. When someone's shooting at you, Little Reaper, you have two choices. Take cover and let them control the engagement, or find them first and end it. I know which one I taught you to choose. She chose. Through the spotting scope, 20-power magnification, Ilara scanned methodically, left to right, top to bottom, looking for the telltale signs of a concealed shooter. Unnatural shapes, straight lines where nature made curves, shadow that was too dark, light that was too bright. There, Northwest Ridge, 2,100 meters, maybe 2,200. A position that shouldn't exist but did. A small depression in the ridgeline that provided perfect defilade, natural cover, clear line of sight to Tower 3. And inside that depression, barely visible even at 20 power, the faintest outline of a human form. Taliban sniper, the one hunting her while she hunted everyone else. Ilara ranged him with her laser. The number came back and made her stomach drop. 2,487 meters, 1.5 miles. Her longest confirmed kill had been 1,640 meters, 3 years ago. Different rifle, different conditions, different lifetime. Her father's record was 2,147 meters, third longest in Marine Corps history. The shot that had made him a legend. 2,487 was beyond anything she'd ever attempted. It was also the only shot that mattered. Another round cracked past, this one 18 inches to her right. The Taliban sniper was getting closer. Next shot, maybe the one after, would find her. And if she died, the FOB lost its overwatch. Lost the one thing keeping the Taliban assault from succeeding. 47 Marines would die because she wasn't good enough. Ilara pulled out her Kestrel weather meter, started gathering data with hands that wanted to shake but didn't. Couldn't. Not now. Temperature, 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Dropped 10 degrees since the engagement started. Cold air sinking into the valley. Dense air. Bullets would fly slower, drop faster. Wind. This was the problem. At 2,487 meters, she wasn't shooting through one wind. She was shooting through layers. Different speeds, different directions. Ground level wind was 12 miles per hour from the north, but mid-level maybe 15 miles per hour from northwest. And at the peak, where her bullet would travel for most of its flight, the wind was gusting 25 to 30 miles per hour from due north. She watched the grass, watched the dust, watched the way moonlight bent through air currents. Average wind speed, 22 miles per hour. Direction, 12 o'clock. Straight headwind with slight right component. Altitude, 8,500 feet. Her zero was sea level. At this altitude, air density was 25% lower. Bullets flew faster, flatter, but were less stable. Crosswind drift increased. Barometric pressure, 25.79 inches, dropping. Storm front moving in. Unstable air. Unpredictable conditions. She pulled out her father's journal, flipped to the section on extreme long range. At 2,000 meters plus, you're not shooting at a target, you're negotiating with physics. Every variable matters. Coriolis effect becomes significant. Earth's rotation deflects the bullet. Shooting east, bullet drifts right. Shooting west, bullet drifts left. At extreme range, 2 to 3 MOA adjustment required. Spin drift from rifling adds another 1 to 2 MOA. Temperature affects powder burn rate, which affects velocity, which affects everything. And time of flight becomes critical. At 2,000 meters, your bullet is in the air for 4+ seconds. That's 4 seconds for wind to push it, 4 seconds for gravity to pull it, 4 seconds of pure chaos you have to predict and compensate for. The math is complex, but the principle is simple. Observe everything, trust nothing, calculate perfectly. Ilara began her calculations. Range, 2,487 meters, 2,720 yards, 1.54 miles. Bullet, Federal Gold Medal match, 175 grain, muzzle velocity 2,600 feet per second. At this range, the bullet would lose approximately 40% of its velocity. It would arrive at target traveling maybe 1,560 feet per second. Still supersonic, still lethal, if it arrived at all. Bullet drop. She pulled out her ballistic calculator, punched in numbers. The answer made her breath catch. 87.3 feet. The bullet would drop 87.3 feet over the course of its flight. That was higher than an 8-story building. She wasn't aiming at her target. She was aiming at empty sky nearly 90 feet above him and trusting physics to bring the bullet down. Wind drift. This was harder. Variable winds meant variable drift. She averaged the numbers. 22 miles per hour average wind speed. Headwind with slight right component. At 2,487 meters, that meant approximately 23 inches of lateral drift. But that was average. If the wind gusted to 30 miles per hour at the wrong moment, drift could be 31 inches. If it dropped to 15, drift could be 16 inches. 15-inch margin of error at 1.5 miles. Against a human-sized target. Impossible odds. Unless you stopped thinking about odds and started thinking about precision. Coriolis effect. She was shooting northwest, northern hemisphere. Coriolis would push the bullet right. At this range, approximately 3 minutes of angle. That translated to roughly 7.8 inches. Spindrift. Her barrel had right-hand rifling. Bullet would drift right as it spun. At extreme range, approximately 2 minutes of angle. Another 5.2 inches. Temperature. 58 degrees was 27 degrees colder than her zero temperature of 85. Cold air was denser. Bullets flew slower. She'd need to adjust up by approximately 0.8 MOA to compensate. At this range, that meant 2.2 feet of additional holdover. Altitude. 8,500 feet meant thin air. Less drag. Bullets flew faster and flatter. Adjust down 0.9 MOA. At this range, 2.5 feet. She ran the numbers 3 times. Checked them. Rechecked them. Total elevation adjustment. 87.3 feet base drop, plus 2.2 feet for temperature, minus 2.5 feet for altitude. 87 feet total. Total windage adjustment. 23 inches for wind drift, plus 7.8 inches for Coriolis, plus 5.2 inches for spin drift. 36 inches total. 3 feet right. Time of flight, 4.2 seconds. In 4.2 seconds, the Taliban sniper could move, could shift position, could fire again and kill her. But in 4.2 seconds, a 175 grain bullet traveling on a perfect ballistic arc could cross 1.5 miles and end a life. If the shooter was good enough, if the calculations were right, if the wind didn't shift, if 1,000 things went perfectly. Ilara looked through her scope, placed the crosshairs on a point in space 87 feet above the Taliban sniper's position and 3 feet to the right. Empty air, moonlight, the ghost of a shot that didn't exist yet. Her radio crackled. Ghost 1, Reaper 6, what's your status? We're reading incoming fire on your position. She keyed the mic. Reaper 6, Ghost 1, contact at 2500 meters. Taliban sniper, I'm engaging. Silence. Then, Ghost 1, did you say 2500 meters? Affirmative. Corporal, that's... Blackwood's voice trailed off. He didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew what that distance meant, what it required, what the odds were. I know, Master Guns, but it's the shot I've got. And if I don't take it, he takes me. Another silence. Longer. Then, your father's record was 2,147 meters. I know. You'd be breaking it. I'm not trying to break records, Master Guns. I'm trying to keep 47 Marines alive. Everything else is noise. She heard something in Blackwood's voice. Pride, maybe, or fear, or both. Then make the shot, Ghost One, and come home. Roger that. Alara set down the radio, settled into her shooting position. Cheek weld, perfect. Eye relief, perfect. Body aligned behind the rifle so recoil would drive straight back into her shoulder. Her breathing slowed. 90 beats per minute. 80, 70, 60, 55, 50. Between heartbeats there was silence. Perfect silence. The kind of silence where the universe held its breath and waited to see what happened next. She thought about her father, thought about that last day at the range in West Virginia. The mountains like sleeping giants. Air so clean it hurt. You're going to be better than me, little Reaper. I know it. Just remember, it's not about the rifle. It's not about the record. It's about using what you're good at to protect people who need protecting. That's the only thing that matters. She thought about the child in Mosul. 4 inches, the width of a human hand. The margin between doing her job and living with a nightmare. She thought about the 47 Marines at FOB Ripley who were counting on her to be good enough, to be precise enough, to be her father's daughter in the ways that mattered. The crosshairs settled on empty space 87 feet above a man who was trying to kill her. 3 feet to the right. She exhaled halfway, found the space between heartbeats, and squeezed the trigger. The M110 barked. Recoil drove into her shoulder. The sound echoed off the mountains. Crack, boom, chasing the bullet that was already gone, already flying, already committed to its trajectory through space and time and physics. Alara cycled the bolt, smooth, automatic, chambered another round without thinking, kept her eye to the scope, watched. 1 second, the bullet climbed, arcing up through thin mountain air at 2,600 feet per second, already beginning its long fall. 2 seconds, halfway there, slowing now as air resistance bled away velocity, but still supersonic, still deadly. Wind pushed at it, right, down, physics negotiating with violence. 3 seconds, the bullet peaked, began its descent, gravity pulling harder now, acceleration, the long fall toward earth and flesh and the ending of a life. 4 seconds. Impact, but not where Alara expected. The Taliban sniper's rifle shattered. The scope exploded in a spray of glass and metal, but the man himself rolled sideways, scrambling for cover. Alive. She'd hit the weapon, not the man. Missed by 8 inches. Ghost One, Reaper 6. Blackwood's voice was urgent. Status! Alara's hands were shaking, not from fear, from the realization of what a miss meant. She'd calculated perfectly. The math had been right. But wind at 2,487 meters was chaos. A gust she hadn't accounted for. A shift in the final second. 8 inches, the width of a dinner plate. At a mile and a half, 8 inches was nothing. At a mile and a half, 8 inches was everything. The Taliban sniper was moving now, abandoning his position, running. He'd be out of sight in seconds. And without his rifle, he couldn't shoot back. But he could radio, could tell the remaining Taliban fighters exactly where Tower 3 was, could bring every gun in the valley to bear on her position. 47 Marines would die because she'd missed by 8 inches. Reaper 6, Ghost 1, her voice was steady, calm. The kind of calm that came from making peace with what had to happen next. Target missed. Weapon destroyed but sniper mobile, re-engaging. She didn't wait for acknowledgement. The Taliban sniper was running southeast, away from his position, heading for cover in the rocks 150 meters downslope. Smart, but running meant predictable movement, linear path, constant speed. Alara ranged him with her laser. 2,534 meters, longer than before, moving target. Wind still gusting. But she didn't have time for perfect calculations, didn't have time to second guess. She watched him run, counted his pace. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each step covered roughly 1 meter. Steady rhythm, trained soldier running for his life. She calculated in her head, not conscious thought, pure instinct built from 10,000 hours of practice. Range, 2,534 meters. Moving target, perpendicular to her position at roughly 4 meters per second. Time of flight, 4.3 seconds. He'd cover 17 meters in that time, lead him by 17 meters. Wind, still gusting 25 to 30 miles per hour. But now she knew. The gust that had pushed her last shot right wasn't constant. She could see it in the grass, see the pattern. 10 seconds of 30 miles per hour, then 5 seconds at 22, then back up. She waited, watched. The wind dropped. 22 miles per hour, steady. Ilara adjusted. Led the target by 18 meters now, accounting for wind drop. Held high. 88 feet up, 3 feet 2 inches right for average wind. Plus 5 inches for Coriolis. Plus 6 inches for spindrift. Total holdover, 88 feet up, 44 inches right. The Taliban sniper took his 15th step. Ilara found the space between heartbeats and fired. 4.3 seconds. The bullet flew true this time. No wind gust, no chaos, just physics and precision and everything her father had taught her. The Taliban sniper's head snapped back. He dropped mid-stride and didn't move again. 2,534 meters. Moving target. Second shot. Perfect. For a moment, Ilara couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The weight of what she'd just done, the miss, the recovery, the impossible second chance, crashed over her like a wave. She'd almost failed. 8 inches had almost cost 47 lives. But she hadn't failed. She'd adjusted, corrected, executed. That was the difference between good snipers and her father's daughter. Good snipers made the first shot. Great snipers made the second. Ghost 1, Reaper 6. Blackwood's voice was shaking. Actual emotion. From a man who'd spent 34 years cultivating professional detachment. Confirm target eliminated. Ilara found her voice. It came out steady, calm, professional. Confirmed Reaper 6. Hostile sniper neutralized. 2 shots. Second confirmed kill at 2,534 meters. Ghost 1, that second shot. Blackwood's voice trailed off. It's just ballistics, Master Guns. Just math. But it wasn't just math, and they both knew it. It was the ability to miss and not break. To calculate under pressure when lives hung in the balance. To trust training when instinct screamed to hide. It was everything Silas Merrick had taught his daughter about being not just a good shooter, but a great warrior. And she'd just proven she'd learned the hardest lesson of all. Perfection was impossible. Excellence was recovering when perfection failed. Ilara scanned the valley through her scope. The Taliban assault had stalled completely. Without their sniper, without their heavy weapons teams, without the leadership she'd systematically eliminated over the past 90 minutes. 200 fighters had attacked FOB Ripley. 37 of them were dead, killed by one woman with a rifle and the skills to use it. The rest were retreating. All stations, Ripley 6, Captain Hayes on the radio. His voice was different now. Not command voice, not professional detachment, just honest relief. Enemy forces are withdrawing. Hold positions. Maintain defensive posture. Casualties report. Reports started coming in. Marines calling out their status. Ammunition counts. Wounded. 0 KIA. 11 wounded. None critical. All stabilized. 0 dead. Because one corpsman had been willing to stop healing and start killing. Because one daughter had been willing to embrace the legacy she'd spent 3 years running from. Because sometimes the only way to save lives is to take them. Ilara set down her rifle. Her hands were shaking now. Adrenaline crash. Delayed stress response. Everything she'd held at bay for 90 minutes of sustained combat finally catching up. She pulled out her father's dog tags, held them in trembling hands. "I did it, Dad," she whispered to the mountain wind. "I saved them, like you taught me, like you would have done." The wind had no answer. But somewhere in the darkness, Ilara could almost hear her father's voice. That West Virginia drawl, soft, proud. "I know you did, little Reaper. I always knew you would." Dawn. The sun rose at 0547 hours, painting the Hindu Kush in shades of gold and amber and blood red. Beautiful in the way that surviving the night always made morning beautiful. Ilara climbed down from Tower 3 at 0612. Her legs were stiff. Her shoulder ached from recoil. She'd fired 37 shots, burned through most of a night, changed the course of a battle. Master Gunnery Sergeant Blackwood was waiting at the base of the tower. He looked at her, at the rifle in her hands, at the journal tucked under her arm, at the dog tags visible outside her uniform blouse. Then he came to attention and saluted. Ilara blinked. Blackwood was E9, she was E4. Senior NCOs didn't salute junior enlisted. That wasn't how the Marine Corps worked. But Blackwood held the salute anyway. "Master Guns, you don't need to." "Yes, I do." His voice was quiet, serious. "What you did tonight, Corporal, you saved every life at this FOB. 47 Marines are alive because you were willing to do what needed doing. Your father saved my life once. Tonight, his daughter saved all of us. That deserves a salute." Ilara returned the salute, crisp, professional, the way her father had taught her. "I was just doing my job, Master Guns." "No," Blackwood lowered his hand. "You were being exactly what your father raised you to be, and that's something more than a job." They walked back toward the FOB together. Around them, Marines were beginning the morning routine. Damage assessment, resupply, medical checks. All the tasks that came after surviving a fight. 11 wounded Marines were waiting at the aid station. Corporal Ilara Merrick set down her rifle, picked up her medical bag, and went to work saving the lives she'd spent all night protecting. Because that's what corpsmen did. And that's what Silas Merrick's daughter had learned to do better than almost anyone alive. Epilogue. 18 months later, Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia, March 2021. Staff Sergeant Ilara Merrick stood on the range, watching 16 Marines, 8 men, 8 women, practice long-range marksmanship. The morning was cold. Virginia cold, not Afghanistan cold, manageable. Behind her, the sign read, Combat Integrated Sniper Medic Program, CISMP for short. The first program in Marine Corps history to train operators in both precision marksmanship and advanced combat medicine. The idea had come from her after-action report from Fob Ripley. The Corps had approved it 6 months later. Ilara had been promoted to staff sergeant and assigned as senior instructor. 127 Marines had graduated the program in the past 18 months, all of them deployed. All of them performing both roles, sniper and medic, in combat zones around the world. 0 friendly KIA under their watch. 0. Staff Sergeant, one of the students, Lance Corporal Rivera, good shooter, excellent field medic, called from the firing line. Question about wind reading at 1,200 meters. Hold your position. Ilara walked down the line. What's the problem? Rivera pointed at her kestrel. Wind meter says 18 miles per hour from 3 o'clock. But the grass at 800 meters is barely moving. Which do I trust? Ilara smiled. What did I teach you about instruments versus observation? Instruments tell you what's happening where you are. Observation tells you what's happening where your bullet is going to be. Exactly. So what does the grass tell you? Rivera studied the range through her spotting scope. Wind at 800 is maybe 10 miles per hour, but at 1,200, I can see heat shimmer bending. That means faster wind higher up, maybe 20 miles per hour. Good. So what's your calculation? Rivera ran the numbers, called out adjustments. Fired. Target hit. Center mass. Outstanding! Alara moved to the next shooter. Remember, instruments are tools. Your eyes and brain are better tools. Trust them. She worked her way down the line, correcting form, explaining ballistics, teaching the same lessons her father had taught her in the mountains of West Virginia 2 decades ago. At 1100 hours, the students broke for lunch. Ilara stayed on the range, cleaning rifles, organizing equipment, maintaining standards. Master Gunnery Sergeant Thane Blackwood found her there. He was in dress uniform, blues, ribbons covering his chest like a history book written in colored fabric, silver star, bronze star with valor, purple heart, Navy Cross, 34 years of service distilled into metal and ribbon. Master Guns, Ilara came to attention, old habits. At ease, Staff Sergeant, Blackwood smiled. Retirement ceremonies at 1400. You're still speaking? Wouldn't miss it, she paused. You nervous? Terrified. He looked at the range, at the students scattered across the grass eating MREs and trading stories. 34 years. That's longer than most of these kids have been alive. And after today, I'm just a civilian. You'll never be just anything, Master Guns. You're a Marine. That doesn't end when you take off the uniform. Blackwood nodded slowly. Your father used to say that. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Even when he was teaching you to shoot as a kid, he was still a Marine, still passing on the knowledge. And now I'm doing the same thing. Ilara gestured at the range. 16 students this class. 8 men, 8 women. Every one of them is going to learn to be both healer and warrior, because that's what modern combat requires. How many graduates total now? 127, all deployed, all performing both roles. Ilara met his eyes. 0 friendly KIA, Master Guns, not one. Blackwood's voice was quiet. Your father would be so proud of you, not because you broke his record, but because you understood what the record meant. It was never about the distance. No, it was about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Blackwood pulled out a small velvet box. Which brings me to why I'm really here. He opened the box. Inside, a Navy Cross. Second highest decoration for valor in combat. Ilara stared. Master Guns. The paperwork finally went through. Took 18 months. Had to be kept classified because of the circumstances. But it's official now. He held out the box. For actions at FOB Ripley, 37 confirmed kills, 2,534 meters shot under combat conditions while under direct fire, 0 friendly casualties. The citation reads, for extraordinary heroism in combat against enemy forces, displaying exceptional courage, tactical brilliance, and unwavering commitment to the preservation of life. Ilara couldn't speak, couldn't move. Navy Cross. Her father had received one. She'd held it at his funeral, had traced the engraving with trembling fingers while her mother wept. Now she was being given one of her own. I can't accept this, she finally said. You already did. The moment you climbed that tower and picked up that rifle. Blackwood pressed the box into her hands. Your father earned his by saving my team. You earned yours by saving an entire firebase. That's legacy, Staff Sergeant, and you've honored his perfectly. Ilara opened the box. The metal caught the sunlight. Bronze cross, eagle, and anchor. The weight of everything it represented. Thank you, Master Guns. Thank you, Staff Sergeant, for being exactly who you needed to be when it mattered most. He glanced at his watch. Ceremony's in 3 hours. Don't be late. I won't. He started to leave, stopped, turned back. Ilara, one more thing. She looked up. In that retirement speech you're giving, don't talk about me. Talk about what we built together. This program, these kids, the future. His voice was firm. I'm yesterday. They're tomorrow. Make sure they know that. Elara smiled. Roger that, Master Guns. After he left, she sat alone on the range, holding the Navy cross, feeling the weight of her father's legacy and her own intertwining. 2 Marines, 2 generations, 2 Navy crosses, both earned by understanding that excellence wasn't about recognition or records. It was about being good enough to save lives when the moment demanded it, and passing that knowledge forward so it never died. Excellence doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs to exist. That had become her mantra, the thing she told every class. Excellence was quiet. Competence spoke for itself. You didn't need to prove you belonged. You just needed to be so good that your presence became undeniable. When the students returned from lunch, Elara put the Navy Cross in her locker, next to her father's journal, next to his dog tags, next to everything he'd given her. Then she walked back out to the firing line, where 16 Marines were waiting to learn the skills that would save lives and take lives and protect the people who couldn't protect themselves. Listen up, her voice carried across the range, strong, clear, the voice of someone who'd learned hard lessons and survived them. Today we're working on extreme long-range calculations, distances beyond 1,500 meters. The math gets complex, the variables multiply, but the principle stays simple. She picked up a rifle, settled into shooting position, perfect form, the way her father had taught her. Observe everything, trust nothing, calculate perfectly, and when you pull that trigger, know exactly why you're pulling it and what it means. She looked up at her students, saw the future, saw the next generation learning to be both healers and warriors, learning to carry the weight of both roles, learning that you could be good at saving lives and good at taking them, and that sometimes being both was the only way to do what needed doing. My father used to say, "The rifle doesn't care why you shoot. It only cares that you do your job when it matters." Elara stood. Every one of you will face a moment where lives depend on you doing your job perfectly. Medic or sniper, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're ready, that you've trained, that you can execute under pressure. She paused. Because somewhere out there, Marines are counting on you to keep them alive. And that's not a responsibility you get to walk away from. That's a responsibility you carry forever. The students listened, absorbing, understanding. Elara smiled, small, proud. Now get on your rifles. We've got work to do. They got to work. And on a cold March morning in Virginia, Silas Merrick's legacy continued. Taught by his daughter, learned by the next generation, passed forward into a future where excellence didn't need to announce itself. It just needed to exist.